It's reported that Jeff Bezos called Bloomberg, one billionaire, to another billionaire, that he should run for president. Now, the only reason they would do this, the only reason Bloomberg would run, is that he thought Sanders and the Democratic Party was no longer willing to toe their line. Meaning, the Democratic Party could no longer be trusted to enact their policy agenda and their policy will. And they themselves decided to get involved in the process. I find that to be extraordinary. Bloomberg is saying he's going to start running in Alabama, or at the very least, he's putting through papers in Alabama, skipping the first few states. The level of hubris is magnificent and out of touchness. One of us, meaning him or I, have a fundamentally different view of the world and a sense of his chances in this race. And to me, it looks like he's going to burn that money on the White House lawn. Bernie Sanders was told that Jeff Bezos, one billionaire, reached out to another billionaire to get that billionaire to run in the election. Sanders laughed. Sanders uproariously laughed.
And needless to say, it means that we are going to defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country. And I am more than aware of the election results in Iowa in 2016. But I believe that irregardless of one's political views, the people of Iowa, the people of America understand that it is not acceptable that we have a president who is a pathological liar, that we have, and again, people can have different points of view.
This is Bernie warming up the crowd
a homophobe
in Iowa. So the presidential contenders are out in Iowa essentially trying to get themselves elected. They want that first state. They know that momentum is a real thing in politics, and if you can rack up wins in first, second, third, A, Joe Biden's electability argument goes away. B, your electability argument gets that much higher, not to mention your profile, not to mention the way media talks about you. 22 Democrats was in the race. They were insufficient to Bloomberg. And so Bloomberg finds himself getting into a presidential primary that has been underway for the last, give or take 6 months. A billionaire is in the White House. One billionaire, Tom Steyer, bought himself into the election, literally bought his way into the election, and has just been caught trying to buy an endorsement in Iowa. A second billionaire found that the other people who were in the race were insufficient to his needs, and that the Democratic Party no longer could be trusted to toe their agenda. And so he himself has decided to run so the Democratic Party's billionaire could fight the Republican Party's billionaire. Your system is naked. Just so we're clear, your system is naked. I'm pointing out to you that Sanders has so spooked the Democratic Party's establishment and how they operate that they have gotten to the point where they themselves have decided to descend into the political space from their typical perch of just controlling the political space. Your system is naked. This is not a democracy. Bernie Sanders is running in this race, and you have all of this media that just lied against him. All of this stuff is, again, capitalistic interests, and they have been trying to black him out. You have a pharmaceutical industry that is firmly against him from the Medicare for All standpoint. You have a billionaire class that is firmly against him, and you have a Democratic establishment that is against him. This guy is one of them. And this guy is only getting into the race because he is terrified of Sanders. If Sanders wasn't running, he wouldn't be in the race. Interestingly to note, Bloomberg, personally, I think stand no chance. I'm enamored by the hubris of this. I'm going to, blow off these states, and I'm going to save the Democratic Party from itself. Here's the catch. If Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were fused, and the point totals were fused, she will be beaten, or they will be beating, everybody else in the race. Meaning, Warren has, for all intents and purposes, been aping Sanders. And whatever position that Sanders has and Warren has, for the most part, Warren has tried to do everything possible to put as little daylight between the two as possible. Meaning that the fact that these two people combined are leading, it gets across an impression, a perspective, a point of view of the Democratic Party. At least the voters. I argue it's a difference between hope and vision versus fear. Those are the two ends. What do you want? What do you want to accomplish from the standpoint of a candidate? We can do big things. We can do those big visionary things. For fuck's sake, the Democratic Party was a party that put a man on the moon. But we can't ensure that everybody gets health care or we get rid of poverty? Are you serious? Are you serious? We can do big things. It does take people being on the same page. It does take people, for the most part, being under this notion of this is what we want to do as a united front. That is true. It does take that. I see you have dollars or pitchforks. For the most part, you've only had dollars. And at this point, you found someone who can harness the pitchforks. It's freaking them out. From a standpoint of fear, being afraid of losing to Trump. And by the way, I understand that. I mean, ultimately, the argument of electability is the thing that keeps popping up. Who's more electable? The catch here is vision does not have to be sacrificed for electability. And the more that becomes clear as this primary goes on, the less Joe Biden's chances. But Bloomberg and the vote tally that Bloomberg is trying to pull is not part of that contingent. I hope you understand what I mean. Bloomberg getting into the race doesn't hurt Sanders because nobody that's voted for Sanders has voted for Bloomberg. By the same token, people who may vote for Warren or people who may vote for Biden would. It seems that they think Biden can't do the job, in which case Bloomberg is getting into the race. Sanders laughed. I suspect he knows what I know, or at the very least what I think I know, which is what I just said, that Bloomberg stands zero chance, despite the level of hubris that in his head, apparently, he does. This is Sanders' response. When Sanders learned Saturday that Amazon's owner, Jeff Bezos, reportedly asked, Bloomberg, Billionaire Bloomberg, to run for president, Sanders couldn't contain his laughter to speak. He uproariously laughed. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was in Iowa campaigning for Sanders, jumped into Sanders, composed himself. Of course, she said in an interview with the Des Moines Register, they've got their class solidarity. The billionaires are looking out for each other. They're willing to transcend the differences in backgrounds and even politics. Yes, as I've said on so many occasions, the issue is class. Issue is class. The fact that Bill Gates seemed more willing to vote for Donald Trump than anyone else tells you everything you need to know about how far they're willing to go to protect their excess at the cost of everyday Americans. Jeff Bezos, worth $150 billion, supporting Mike Bloomberg, worth $50 billion. That's real class solidarity, Bernie Sanders said, with a chuckle. I'm impressed by that grassroots movement. We, on the other hand, have 1 million people contribute to our campaign and millions of individual contributions averaging $16 a piece. That's what we've got, working class people, so a little different approach to politics. I'm amazed by that. Like, there's a positive to having this being naked in this way. My argument has always been that the issue is class. The issue, racial and identity and all this other stuff, those things need to be protected so you don't fall into this kind of fascistic society. But the issue is class, how resources are distributed, poverty, the locking of potential around the planet. I mean, I've made this point before. If you got rid of one thing, get rid of poverty. Meaning, if you're the left, one of your main key objectives, A, corruption, B, get rid of poverty. You're locking away all of this creativity and potential. Think of your world if the resources of this world, instead of being ferreted to the top 1% in the way that it is. Meaning, it is impossible for them to exist without you buying their products or working at their stores. And yet, we accept this paltry condition, this social contract, that allows these guys to buy their way into our politics behind the scenes, and at this point, nakedly, because they can't trust the party. Why is that okay? Why is that okay? Whether you're on the left or the right, why is that okay? Do you really want somebody to be able to have that much of an outsized influence? And by the way, that billions is going to go into ads and campaigns and all of those things. When we talk about the rigging of our political process, we are to some degree talking about the amount of cash that Slash is about. It's a de facto oligarch with a small thread of potential democracy. But it's a difficult thread. Sanders is trying to walk it. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.